is episode 7, which is building lean BIM requirements for owners. The agenda for today will be reviewing two very different people and their experiences with working with their owners in BIM meetings. We will go through 10 things that are unsuccessful in BIM meetings, and then we will show you how to run a badass BIM meeting. Introducing the two very different BIM meetings. Last week, Frank and Ted had BIM meetings with their clients. They both used the same agenda, pretty good agendas, define BIM uses, agreeing on those milestones, determining scope, determining level of geometry and level of information, agreeing on the teams that will be involved, agreeing on deliverables, etc. So it's pretty well covered. So let's meet Frank. Ooh, he doesn't look so pleased. He looks a bit overwhelmed, actually. So Frank's client, they don't look very engaged, and it looks like he may have lost them at some point through his meeting. Wow. So let's see how Ted had done at his meeting. Whoa, that looks like it went well. The client looks happy. He looks happy himself. So very different to Frank's meeting. But what might have been the difference? So let's take a look at the 10 things that may have wrecked Frank's meeting. The first thing is that BIM is usually not the day job of the owner or the client. From someone who speaks BIM the entire day and reads up on it, the owner or client, their job is not that. So when we have meetings with them and other team members, we need to realize that they have different priorities, or they might not understand BIM as we do. And so one really important thing is not to get too technical. So this might have been Frank in his meeting. I haven't had the time to summarize my 5 years of BIM research, so let's go through the raw data. Sometimes we are compelled to show this data and information, but you tend to get too technical, and then you lose your own audience because you're starting to use language that is unfamiliar to them. All the BIM jargon starts to come in. You start using abbreviations. Nobody is going to learn all that or go back to and reference all that information. An owner or client might not know what CDE or COBE is. So let's keep it simple and so less jargon. Something else that might have happened is that he might have brought in the wrong people. He might have brought in a guy that doesn't know anything about BIM instead of the BIM expert. Hello, BIM, I love BIM, smart lean BIM, the digital disruption guy. So maybe the owner or client didn't know which people to bring in. It's very important to invite the right people to the meeting, to agree and commit to certain milestones in the scope. We need to see if the relevant people give some valuable input. So getting the right people in the room is important so as to not waste people's time. So Frank may have started his meeting with a set of documents that he copied and pasted from a previous project. So that might be confusing, as the current project may not have required a lot of that information. It may be a lot to clean up. It may also be not accurate documentation. It may seem quick to create it this way, but the side effect may be very, very painful. So they have it, square peg in a round hole does not fit, does not work. Frank also might have just been selling the BIM dream, saying how they're going to save so much of money and how it's going to be perfect, seamless workflow, instant ROI, etc. And while it's good to sell this kind of stuff, but sometimes you have to be more specific to the project at hand. And when you oversell it, the owner tends to think that BIM is easy. You know, well, if you can change it once and it can update every other drawing, then surely we can have this and this and this, you know. And they will probably go on to demand more and more, thinking everything will be easy. And if you promise too early a lot of return and savings, then they tend to ask for everything, which is in our industry a crime. So be specific on what you are delivering and what the client needs, and be mindful of the time it takes to accomplish all those BIM uses, and make it clear with the owner as well. Sometimes when the client has had an over expectation and not had the delivery as expected, then they tend to be traumatized by a previous BIM project. And it might just be the other team members as well. So yes, being traumatized by BIM is the thing. And those traumatic experiences might have set off with a traditional delivery process which we know doesn't account for the resources and time and money that might be required upfront to get the benefit of BIM. So some of these reasons are what might have been why Frank had a difficult time. And that would lead to poor requirement scoping and also over-promising so that you can impress the owner, because you want to please the client and you will want more work with them in the future. So how to run a badass BIM meeting? So Ted looked like he had success. So let's look at what he might have done in his meeting. Ted understood that BIM is not part of the owner's day job. So instead of expecting them to understand what BIM is and how it can benefit them, he provided some clear, rich examples, like coordination and its potential value, like coordinate building projects through a model, reduce and eliminate field conflicts, which reduces RFIs significantly, visualize construction, increase productivity, reduce construction cost, decrease construction time, increase productivity on site, more accurate as-built drawings as well. And he might have also had 4D phase planning. He might have showing an owner an example from a previous project, and seeing the amount of effort from scoping and seeing the output is really powerful, as well as showing the benefits, for example, sequencing and safety. Precisely quantify model materials, so quickly generate quantities to assist in decision making, generate more cost estimates at a faster rate, better visual presentation of a project and construction elements that might be estimated, provide cost information to the appointing party during the early decision-making phase of design and throughout the life cycle, including changes during construction. Save estimators time by reducing quantity takeoff time, allowing estimators to focus more on value-adding activities in estimating, such as identifying construction assemblies, generating pricing and factory risks, which are essential for high-quality estimates. Also, adding to a construction schedule, such as a 4D model, a BIM-developed cost estimate can help track budgets throughout construction, easier exploration of different design options and concepts within the appointing party's budget, obviously. And also speaking about quickly determining costs for specific objects, and then easier to train new estimators through this highly visual process that we're trying to get to. So allowing the owner or client to be able to virtually walk through their building, so virtual reality example, so taking that hardware to the meeting for them to experience is very powerful and very well received. But it also enables them to understand the commitments, the scope, and everything required to get that photorealistic feel. And then handover requirements, very important that the person that runs and manages the facilities is in that meeting too. So having the facilities manager in the meeting and saying, this is the equipment I need, and this is the information that comes with it that I need as well. So Ted understands that he cannot get too technical. So instead he uses pictures. Pictures, like they say, are worth 1,000 words. So imagine using 1,000 pictures. So clients and owners love it when you're visual. They love to see how their building is going to look. So use pictures to explain the scoping process instead of looking at an Excel spreadsheet or a long Word document. And I think that's why Frank's team were laying asleep on the table. So Ted understands that templates can save time and reduce risk. So instead of copying and pasting things that might not be needed in the specific project, he can use templates and he can be selective. Every project is unique, and bringing in that risk is not good for the client and for your own company. It's a liability. So the trick is to keep those templates basic and be able to develop that workflow that you are putting into those templates. Ted understands that each BIM use can have completely different requirements. So very important. So he does realize that, and he sees the ability to define information delivery milestones and change what is required on each milestone. So he knows that you don't need a high level of detail in, say, design reviews, only a certain amount of geometry in cost estimation, and focusing on the actual coordination elements that will be needed is very important. So delivering the correct level of geometry when needed and not forcing a high level of geometry throughout the process. So Ted understands that aligning expectations is everything. And so what is important to the owner? Collaborate with the owner. to create and agree on the project's requirements. So invite the owner to help with the scoping, get them engaged so they can see the process and the effort that goes into it. Ted understands that lean information requirements will save time and please the owner enough so that they would want to work with you again. And being able to define project-specific information requirements is part of this. Having a library of all the documentation that you would use across all of your projects, but also being able to just add the ones you need for a specific project that you're working on. Ted understands that targeted information requirements are more achievable. So have a clear list of what is needed and what information was needed and by when. So targeted information requirements instead of asking for everything all the time. This will save time and waste on deliverables. Ted is a very understanding person. So he also understands that the agreements must also be printed in a contract. So being able to, in the meeting, click print and say, this is my handover documentation, this is what we agree to, these are all the information requirements we agree to, a nice rapidly printed and formatted PDF document. Ted also understands that collaboration will help achieve compliance. So bringing in everyone along from day one, adding them to the team, they can help build this document. And when you go and check and manage and verify visually before you publish a model for use, it's a waste of time having these meetings and not sharing this information with the rest of the individuals who are going to be doing the work. It's a waste of time having that 2-hour meeting and then telling the client, oh, I'll get back to you. Instead, now you have the ability to then and there print and send everything that was agreed on in the meeting to everybody involved. This is why Ted is able to run a badass meeting. So some quotes from real life people. Cindy, the BIM consultant and president at VDCO Tech says, I feel like I work at Disneyland when I show off Planoly. It's so simple and visual. We also have Jeff, the owner and assistant director at Broward County in the USA. He says Planoly makes our conversations easier. It makes buy-in easier. It's a great basis of conversation and agreement. So a lot of positives from people from all around the world. So in conclusion, technical BIM jargon helps nobody. Keep it simple. Don't throw in abbreviations. Everyone in that meeting should understand what you're saying. Visual requirements transform owner engagement. Lean BIM scope and lean information requirements can produce jaw-dropping value. And we must all start running badass BIM meetings. And here are some resources to help your BIM team with this. So follow this link to get more information on Planoly. The link is in the chat. And book your masterclass accreditation sessions with us now. As for our next webinar, which is episode 8, Protecting You Against BIM Liability.